Welcome to the Money Huddle, a podcast that explores financial topics for families and small business owners. Hosted by Michael Baker and Ross Marinell. All opinions expressed by Michael and Ross or any podcast guests are solely their own opinions and may not reflect the opinions of Planners Alliance. The podcast recording is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for investment decisions. Clients of Planners Alliance may maintain positions in securities discussed on the program.
Welcome back to the Money Huddle. My name is Michael Baker, and I'm here with my business partner Ross Marinell. Ross,
Michael,
how you doing today?
What's going on today, man? I'm a little fired up today.
You're fired.
I'm ready for this podcast.
I know.
You ready?
I saw you when you walked in the office. You had a little pep in your step. I could see.
Hey,
I was like, something's going down today.
I want to get right to it today.
All right, let's go.
All right, so a couple of things that caught my eye this week in the news that, relating to some topics that we've been discussing over the last few episodes. We've had, of course, the infamous college cheating scandal
Yes.
using the side door where we have famous
Aunt
celebrities. Yeah, Aunt Becky getting
Aunt
her children into school as kind of pose as athletes. There was another story.
Weren't they athletes though?
Well, I mean, the Photoshop pictures made it look like
I'm
it.
with you.
But anyway,
Yeah.
so this there was an article today from or this week from ProPublica.org, and it said parents are giving up custody of their kids to get need-based college financial aid. Let me continue here just a
Okay.
minute. First, parents turn over guardianship of their teenagers to a friend or relative. Then the student declares financial independence to qualify for tuition and scholarships. So this is a way for higher income families that would not normally qualify for need-based aid. They're giving up guardianship of their children to another family member who, well, I would imagine makes less income, that has less financial assets. Right. And then the child, I guess, can claim independence. Yeah. And potentially qualify for more need-based financial aid.
So wait. So this is this like? I guess it is as bad as it sounds. So these are really people that have like, they aren't hurting for money. It's like they figured out another way to game the system, and that's what's happening.
So it seems. So what's happened? So
wow.
The families now. I have no idea what their financial situation
What
is.
state is this happening in?
How this is Illinois.
Of course, this is Illinois.
So of course, last week we talked about was the University of Chicago being the highest cost tuition in the United States, $80,000 a year. But here's the problem. Besides just the distastefulness of that, right, and potentially giving up guardianship of your children, which seems unbelievable.
That's so bizarre. How many years in advance are they doing it before graduation?
Yeah, so they've got a plan for it, right? So it's got to be, I think, a couple years in advance. So this is premeditated.
Yes.
This isn't they just rolled out of bed one day and just decided.
Because I think with FAFSA you have to submit like prior to 2 years tax returns, all that stuff.
And so the ugliness of this is really shown in the fact that, of course, there are families that really need some of these need-based aid programs.
And they're not getting them.
And they're not getting them because it is a first come, first serve basis. So if you filed your FAFSA application on time and you had all your ducks in a row and you've been preparing for this moment, maybe you get in a day or two or a week in front of a family who might truly need assistance, where they are not gaming the system. They just need the assistance. And these programs run out of funds. And so this one in particular, this Illinois Monetary Award Program, they call it the MAP grant. 82,000 students were eligible for the grant last year, but did not receive it because there wasn't enough money. And so the grant offers up to $5,000 awarded on a first-come, first-served basis. So I just thought, man, this college admission story is out of control. And the more people dig into it and look at the way that people have gamed the system, just the more distasteful it becomes.
We're probably going to see and hear a whole lot more and have our eyes really opened about how innovative. I mean, obviously we saw with Aunt Becky, they basically created profiles of their kids that didn't exist, and there was bribery involved, and it was kind of a straightforward scam, but now you're like, well, hold up. People they're giving away guardianship of their children. You know, I don't know, man. What else is this going to uncover? Because now people, the thing is now people are starting to dig.
Well, right. So
everyone's antennas up now.
So this was centered in Illinois, but can you imagine? I'm sure organizations are looking around the country, like, who's giving up guardianship of their children? What is happening? What is the story behind this? I mean, a lot of these get picked up by the guidance counselors, right? Because they're kind of the first line of defense for some of the wacky applications.
Mm-hmm.
And they're seeing, what they propose to be an affluent family, someone's being invited to an orientation for low income. They're like, wait a second, something doesn't jive here.
Yeah, Johnny gets dropped off to school in a Range Rover.
Right. And now they're somehow, so I thought that was something that we should share with some of our listeners. Just the debate on college costs have gone on, and we're about to re-enter the school year. People need to be focused on how they're going to prepare for the college expense for their children, what scholarships they legitimately qualify for and should be exploring. South Carolina has a couple of really important scholarship thresholds for the Life Scholarship and then for the Palmetto. So it's important to know what those thresholds and criteria are so that you can manage toward those in a purposeful and straightforward way.
I wonder,
we're not giving up our children to get
I'm wondering, this sounds so terrible, and full disclosure for anyone that's listening, I am not on the free college bus. I'm not on the free college for all bus. But now I'm starting to wonder, like, with these grants and things like that, I mean, should we not figure, something out where there's maybe a tiny bit of help or something? The problem here's the problem I have economically, the more money that's made available basically at free or no or low cost, it's basically you just go get it. The colleges are not holding their pricing static. They are just increasing the rate of tuition. They're increasing, pay, cost to attend there. So they aren't, there's no, they're moving the cheese. Every time there's some new quote unquote government solution, the colleges move the cheese and they absorb all the, the freemium, if you will.
Well, look, we talked last week about LSU paying $28 million to renovate the football
did you see the blowback on that, by the way?
Yeah, and then, it really comes out, well, we actually renovated $114 million for the engineering bill. Yeah. The colleges...
somebody started a GoFundMe
for the library?
Yes.
Well, look, are the colleges competing on cost? Is that really what a student is looking at? Or are they looking at, man, look at this campus, look at this building I'm going to be in.
I think
look at the rankings
the kids
of the school.
And the parents. I think kids and parents look at very different things when it comes to school. And we've talked about this, I know, amongst ourselves. I think that one of the things we try to help parents do is to begin the college conversation with kids early. Don't wait until, Johnny's a junior and find out he wants to go to Vanderbilt. You need to be talking to Johnny when he's in middle school and just planting those seeds about, what he thinks he might want to do or what Janie thinks she might want to do. And so that you don't get hit with this bomb like, oh, their dream school is Notre Dame. And you know what I mean?
I think until we start holding the colleges,
putting a plan.
Until we start holding the colleges accountable for their cost and really competing on cost, I don't see this slowing down. They're really, maybe they're viewing it as our competition is how great does our campus look? How sweet are the dorm facilities?
Curb appeal.
How sweet? Yeah, it's really the story that they're selling.
Maybe we can win another national championship or two.
But here, I want to talk real quick because we hear this just on this topic of free college, right? Because this comes up all the time. We want to have free college. Well, look, if you value that, look at some of the community colleges that are here now.
Right.
Namely, like, let's say York Tech.
Yeah, close to us. There's York Technical College.
A few miles away. Yeah. It's community college, which is a feeder school into Winthrop and to USC. Mm-hmm. Okay, so there's programs that if you follow to your program and you graduate, then you have basically your roadmap to get into the last 2 years of education at USC or Winthrop, right?
Sure.
Well, if you qualify for the Life Scholarship based on your GPA, you don't even have to take the SAT or ACT. Then if you just paying for tuition and books, it is very close to being free right now.
Right.
If you stay at home, if you live locally, so if you don't, then you would have to pay a little bit more for somewhere to stay. But if you want to stay at home and then have your tuition and books paid, it can be done. So, I mean, this idea that we're going to change community college to be free, have we really looked to see how expensive it is already?
No.
How close it is to being free if you're qualifying with that one scholarship?
No, I agree. I'm 100% in agreement with that. I think the whole free. First of all, I hate that word because it's never free. But
Right.
you know, the whole idea of it being free somehow or another is going to transform. You know, I mean, the kid. I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but you know, the kids that aren't performing in class now in high school, are we expecting them to turn it around just because we extend their ability to stay in school a little longer? Now, you know, what happens is these programs, we always focus on the small subset of people that they're going to help the most, but what's the impact across the board, you know? So I don't know. Anyway, that's
all right. Let's move on. That's enough college for
unfortunate that
today.
people are trying to disown their kids, but
It just seems like every week there's just more really eye-popping details about ways that people are taking the route to try and get college cheaper. All right, what else you got for us this week, Michael?
Well, you know, actually, there was an article that I had meant to talk about a couple weeks ago, and it just fell through the cracks with some of the stuff we were talking about. But it was an article that was published out by Bloomberg, and the headline of it was, "Retirees might run out of money 10 years before they die." You know, so that's a headline that obviously gathered my attention. And basically, the article was written about a report that the World Economic Forum published, saying that, you know, just basically the gap of workers' savings versus what their income needs are going to be in retirement is pretty substantial. And it says specifically in the U.S., the forum calculates that 65-year-olds have, on average, enough to cover just 9.7 years of income. It says it leaves the average American man with a gap of 8.3 years, and women who live longer, a 10.9 year gap of where, you know, they're running out of money. And it goes on to talk about a few different things, but one of the things I thought was interesting was the comments in here where one of the persons that were interviewed stated that all the risks that governments and employers used to have, they've shifted to the workers.
Right.
And it kind of goes back to what we keep trying to tell people is like, you know, if you're going to tell people investing is a marathon and not a sprint, like it obviously helps you if you start running that marathon as early as possible and getting yourself into a position where you can save and invest and form good financial habits. Because one of the things that's really challenging, I think, for some folks is they put off saving. They put off, and it's like, you know, okay, I'm 50 now, and now that I've got X, Y, and Z covered, now I'm really going to focus on retirement.
Right.
But
it's always around the corner. It's around where it's coming.
Right.
When we get through this, when this auto loan gets paid, when we get, you know, our daughter through college, then we're going.
Absolutely. Yeah. And to me, what the flip side of that is you don't know what type of market environment you're going to now invest in. Where if you look at, you know, average rates of return over a historical time period, you could see those averages, but we know that clumpy numbers can make an average look like that's an expected rate, but it's over based on a long period of time. So the more you shorten your time horizon, or you haven't been saving, it really impacts, you know, what your money can do for you in retirement. And of course, I didn't look at those numbers too significantly, but with increasing life expectancy, I would even say that it's a little bit longer of a gap than they're projecting, the World Economic Forum.
Well, one of our favorite white papers relating to retirement income planning was The Crisis in Retirement Planning. That was the name of the article by Robert Merton, Harvard Business Review.
That's right.
It's a few years old. But what it related was the transition of corporate America, transitioning pension plans and income into the defined contribution plans that we have today, which is mainly 401k and those types of contribution plans where the employee is responsible or takes the responsibility then of making contributions, and hopefully there's an employer match.
Right.
But then taking the responsibility, of course, then of investing that. So they're taking the investment risk. They have to become familiar with the options that they have, how much risk do they take when they're in their 30s versus in their 60s, and versus a pension plan where there was a defined benefit, meaning if you work X amount of years at this level of income, then you're going to have a formula there that calculates your pension benefit when you retire, right? In the defined benefit plan, in those pension plans, the employer is taking the risk of investment, of funding it, of making sure they're hitting their target goals. That over the last basically 35 to 40 years has really transitioned from the employer's responsibility to hitting those goals to the employees. And let's be honest, some people don't even have access to a 401k plan.
Oh, I know.
And we're going to have this moment in time where we no longer have an employment paycheck coming, and we have to live the rest of our lives on what we've saved and what other benefits there may be, like a Social Security benefit or maybe a pension benefit.
Right.
And so if we're not hitting those savings goals or in that 35-year work history leading up to it, it's going to be very difficult to manage on a smaller amount of savings.
I agree, and I think that unfortunately there are a lot of people that are gonna learn this in real time, because one of the things we've talked about in the past is just the early or unplanned retirement, where hey, my plan is I know I'm catching up, but my plan is to work till I'm mid to late 60s or 70 years old. Then I have a health event, and you can't do that. And
right.
So
we've discussed this, right? On an earlier podcast. I mean, half of retirement is unplanned,
right.
Meaning you didn't walk into your office at age 63 and say, hey, I'd love to be downsized today.
Right.
It happened. And you're having to deal with that and transition very quickly into, well, what am I going to do? Am I going to search for 6 or 8 months to try and find another job, or have I done enough to retire?
Right.
It's not as if we have a choice in that matter sometimes. And so we can't always plan to work till 70.
The flip side of that, though, and this is an area that I think a lot of people overlook, is, and I'm talking to a few people about this right now, is this idea of a phased retirement. So let's take, you have someone who makes a good, strong income. They're making, $100,000 a year, but at high stress, working tons of hours, not a very high quality of life. They feel like their work is, they're coming to the end of their rope. And they've saved some money, and they're like, hey, as soon as I can tap my retirement funds without penalties, I want to be out of there. So they're talking 60 years old, right? 59 and a half, 60 years old. Can I do it? And one of the things that I think people should really start considering is not retiring where you have nothing, you retire and you do nothing, but start looking for something that you might really enjoy doing, and you might make 35 grand a year.
This is leading right into something I want to talk about.
But you're going to be delighted hey man, I got this great little job. It's low stress. I love the people that I see every day. I love the clients or customers that I'm dealing with. It's wonderful. And it's enough to supplement you for a period of time until the remainder of your investments, savings and stuff can kind of kick in for you. So it's this idea of not stopping cold turkey, but phasing in some retirement where you kind of implement a plan or a strategy and have, or maybe I know that there are a lot of people that work big hours. They're in these corporate box offices, and they have a passion or something they'd love to do, but they can't do it full time.
Right.
But they could do it part time as part of a phased retirement plan. So that's something that I think more and more people should consider and start looking at, versus this, well, if I stop working tomorrow, can I live on my savings? Because a lot of people aren't going to be there.
Well, it may not be a choice. That's what we're saying, is if you have the ability and the means to live the rest of your life on your savings and the Social Security income that you're going to receive, then that's really up to you, right? If you want to pursue something, you can. But if you don't, then you know that you've accomplished what you wanted to from a savings standpoint. Some people may not reach that point where they feel confident that they've saved enough to live on their own. And those last 2, 3, 4 years of work become really impactful, because as we've talked about before, that may allow them to defer a Social Security benefit a year or 2 or 3 longer. It may allow them to make an extra 10, 20, or 30,000 in retirement contributions versus withdrawals.
Exactly.
Right. And so it could be a necessity to sort of kind of add to the confidence that they'll be able to make it.
Yeah, no doubt.
But this kind of leads into something that kind of caught me off.
Okay.
Kind of got me a little hot, this
Got you
week,
hot.
okay? It's kind of related to what you just shared, but this take didn't sit well with me today.
Where was this?
All right, so we follow some financial professionals on Twitter.
Oh, it's Twitter.
Listen,
Twitter
but
Twitter will get you hot quick.
It does. It got me. Yeah, I know. Maybe I need to take a break.
Because it's just like
need to unplug.
Everything is just like a snipe, one way or the other.
But this is coming from people that we respect, that we have followed, that we have read their books. So this gentleman, his name is Carl Richards. He wrote a book called The Behavior Gap.
Oh, what did Carl do?
So I'll give you a little background. So
Okay.
he is a financial professional, and at least right now, a financial commentator for sure.
Yeah.
But he does some writing and wrote a book called The Behavior Gap, which is actually fine. Nothing wrong with the book, good book. But this just hit me the wrong way. Okay, I'm gonna read it, and then you just kind of let me know what you think.
Okay.
He said the concept, the very idea of retirement is dumb. Waiting until some arbitrary age to enjoy life, plus stopping all meaningful work all at once, dumb. I will never retire. Well, good for you. I will just do more of the stuff I like and less of the stuff I don't. And so, the comments, a lot of them were supportive, and yeah, that's great is what I'm thinking too. And this is kind of this idea that we're anti-retirement, right? There's this sort of brewing, voice coming from younger folks that like, hey, look, I'm in my 40s, right? I'm never going to retire. I'm going to work forever. I'm never going to stop meaningful work. But here's what got me mad. Some arbitrary age. Like, it's not arbitrary at all. Why are people retiring in their 60s for the most part, Michael? I mean, think about what are some reasons people retire in their 60s? Well, they can transition to Medicare at age 65 and have comprehensive health care that they have a belief in and a cost that can be managed better than private insurance when you're in your 60s. That might be a reason why, right, Michael?
Absolutely.
Well, you've been paying in for 35, 40 years into the Social Security program. But when do you start drawing Social Security? Well, your eligibility starts at age 62 all the way up to age 70.
Right.
Well, what about all of your savings? You've been putting your 401k money away and your IRA money. Well, when can we tap that without an IRS penalty? Age 59 and a half. So is it arbitrary that people are retiring in their 60s?
I don't think so. I think so. I think I did see that tweet in my scrolling efforts the other night when I was trying to avoid watching or reading anything about the Democratic debates. But my take on, and I've met Carl personally. He's a great dude. So I think if I were to play devil's advocate on that, what I would say is he's trying to help people understand, like, we are mentally programmed to put to benchmark certain ages, right? We know after 59 and a half, well, hopefully we know after 59 and a half, I can get my qualified retirement money. At 62, I can claim Social Security. At 65, and I think his mindset is kind of in line with what I was just talking about, was, finding something you're passionate about and not like saying, okay, at 65, this has to happen, or at 62, this has to happen. But to your point, it's kind of hard for people who don't know Carl and don't get no context and see that it does kind of come across a little wild, and especially in a sense of, I would say one of the number one reasons that people hire financial professionals is they are trying to retire. They are trying to get away from their full-time employment. And the other piece of that...
Hold up. Let
me finish.
Devil's advocate.
The other piece of that, though, is that we also know that, like, we're not going to live forever. We're not going to have good health probably forever. So you got to take advantage of those good years to do some of that. So it's not entirely arbitrary.
Waiting until some arbitrary age to enjoy life. You're assuming that people aren't enjoying their lives. That's just wrong. I mean, you know how many people we meet with in their 60s and we'll say, well, what's your ideal travel budget? And they're like, look, we've been everywhere.
Right.
I mean, we don't
true.
really need to travel the world.
Yeah.
They're not retiring and just going to start living their life. This is idiotic. I'm tired of the kind of approach that when you retire, you become some anchor against life. Like it just makes me furious. It really makes me furious. I'm hot right now.
Yeah, he's hot.
I mean, come on. People are retiring. Maybe they want to spend more time with their grandchildren. Maybe they want to spend more time with their friends in their community. Maybe they're just sick of their going to work every day and they've had enough and they've worked a full career and they've saved and they have that. It's their choice. And if you want to sit at home and read books and just enjoy yourself and your family, what's wrong with that?
I don't think
why do we have
there's-
to shame people into working until, they're 100? Like, give me a break.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the definition of retirement is probably different for everybody and what it looks like. And we all going to have different reasons. But to your point, it's like that decade from 60 to 70, that is a decade where a lot of people, they do check a lot of start checking a lot of boxes. They're eligible for Medicare. They can begin Social Security benefits. Depending on if they had children, their kids hopefully are grown out of the house, maybe through college, independent. Maybe they have grandbabies and they don't want to be, they don't want to be living 3 states away working when they could be closer to their grandchildren and experiencing that. So, and a lot of those life events do happen in that decade.
Right.
And so we shouldn't just like arbitrarily or flippantly like throw that away. There's a reason why people are eyeballing these ages.
Right. And we talked a few podcasts ago about the compounding effect, right? And that it doesn't happen, like the magic doesn't happen in the first 5 or 10 years. It takes time. Well, sometimes it might take 30 years of working and saving before you feel like you've accumulated what you can reasonably live on for the rest of your life. So maybe you want to retire at 50 or do something else or do something more meaningful. But look, what you're doing as your career and getting paid to do might be the best way for you to make money. And if eventually your goal is to accumulate enough money that you don't have to go to work,
Right.
it might take until your 60s. It's not easy to save $1 million.
Yeah, I think the second take I would have on that is that there are a lot of people who are, and this was interesting because I've seen different things on this, but there are people that are working at jobs that they're just miserable at. And we've seen studies. I've seen studies in the past, and I don't know if you've seen these, but it's like the utility of money and happiness, like how much more additional income your happiness increases.
Yeah, we've looked at those before.
And believe it or not, that starts to plateau for most people around like 75.
It is. I mean, it's like $70,000, $70,000 or $75,000. You've pretty well reached max happiness.
And so I think that if I were trying to look at this as objectively as possible, we do know there are a lot of people working high stress jobs. They don't like what they do, but they feel like they're trapped. I'm doing this, and it's like, no, you don't have to stay there. Yes, if you stay there and that income provides you with certain things, well, what can you live without? I mean, what would less stress in your life? What would more free time be like? What would possibly being able to, work from home a couple days a week? There's multiple things. And I think it's not being, just slave to this corporate job. It's like, hey, look, the world's a big place. There's lots to do. Carl, for example, with the internet, I don't know if he's still there. He up and moved to New Zealand. Right. And and I mean, he's a free spirit in that. And I think it's cool. Not for everybody, but at the same time, it's like, he's thinking like, why are you sitting there chained to your desk being miserable when you could go do X, Y, and Z? So,
well, he's never going to retire.
Because when we meet with people day in and day out who are trying to plan retirement, a lot of them have a lot of cool stuff going on, and It's just time. It's time for them.
Well, my point is, if you've worked to that level where you can retire and you don't need to go to work to receive a paycheck, you might choose to go to work because you like what you do, then you have given yourself the opportunity to do whatever it is you want. Then you don't have to go and be a super active, I'm going to refire and do a second career. No, if you just want to relax at home, read a few books, play golf every now and then, hang out with your friends, that's fine too.
There you go.
All right. Well, I'm retiring.
All right.
That's all I'm saying.
Ladies and gentlemen, Red Ross.
All right.
Red Ross
I'm done.
All right. Well, listen, just to recap the episode, we started out talking about a few people who are deciding that it's best for them to basically disown their kids.
My goodness.
So that the kids can qualify for academic money. And like anything else, it's there are people that really need those funds, that are, deserving of the programs that they were created, and they're likely not getting them because people are taking advantage of that. We talked about the retirement savings gap and how, according to the World Economic Forum, a lot of workers are not saving enough or won't have enough savings to retire, which kind of leads into that next part is like, what does retirement actually look like for you? And that's one of the things that we would tell everybody. What does retirement look like for you? Obviously, you know, if you're in your 30s or 40s, it's hard because retirement's kind of a vague concept, but you need to be thinking about it because, you know, saving today, what we do today, the habits we form today, they're going to have an impact for us down the road. As always, thank you for listening. Give us a shout out on Facebook. Shoot us a question if you want. We love talking to or getting questions from people who listen to the show or feedback, anything, any topic you would like us to discuss. That's what we're here for. And as always, we'll talk to you next time.